Thank you very much. Good afternoon, fellow students. And as you know, we're students for lifetime, as long as we learn. And beyond that, you will be students in the astral and the mental levels. So might as well. We never stop learning. I met Douglas Baker in 1972 when I helped him organize his lectures there. So let me start. Right. Now, the title Death and Beyond is shortened from the original title, which I named the book after, which is The Progress of Dying and Our Journey Beyond. So in other words, today I will try to compress about 4 hours of lecture into one. So when you see me hesitate sometimes, it's not because of the lack of words, but the too many words that I'm trying to combine what I heard so far today with the most important aspects of the subject, and not repeat as much or focus less on the things you heard already this morning. So first, I will introduce the chapter. I will then what we really are. Now, the previous speakers already touched upon it, but I want to go more through the technical aspects, the physical, astral, and mental makeup of us. And I will not go beyond the soul and actually the levels of the human kingdom as much as or as high as the soul itself. We have to review consciousness, and that is our consciousness, and whatever makes us up, that is the most important part to understand, because the spirit that we really are is using consciousness as a tool for the expression in the physical, astral, mental levels. So remember, we also then, of course, have to go to why we are here. And Scott touched upon the purpose of life, but I like to bring that further into the concrete. First, of course, by now, everybody knows here, there is no death, only change. Now, whenever you hear me using the word death or dying, it has for us and should have for us the meaning of exactly focus of self-consciousness to a higher level. And of course, I shall attempt to get into the subjects of leaving the physical body, the actual process. How do we survive the death? What do we survive in? The vehicle that carries our consciousness forward. And what sort of environment will we meet? And the characteristics of the astral, and maybe in part I can get even into the mental plane, but very likely within 1 hour I like to focus primarily the dying process and the astral experiences and the purpose, of course. So what is the purpose of survival? Very important. We talked about reincarnation and merging with the soul, etc., etc. But that's a very important point. So as you know, what psychology, psychiatry, and science says, that we are made up primarily or only of our DNA that we get from our parents, and the second factor would be the environmental, but mainly peership influence, learning, schooling, upbringing, and so forth. What they neglect or not believe in is the most important part of us, which is the soul. And it is the soul that is our source of self-consciousness. It's very important. Each one of us were individualized about 18.5 million years ago, some of us even older on the moon chain. But this is the most important part. I have to use this. This is the most important part here that makes us tick. And of course, that's what our main purpose is here, why we're living amongst those we call the master Robert Browning in his poem Paracelsus, he names us, or the average person, as half-formed creatures round. I think he was very generous, frankly. I can attest to that. So,
review of the oneness of consciousness. With this quick review of our consciousness between the physical plane and the upper mental plane, you are shown that all consciousness is one. Incarnation starts when we establish first the mental body, then the astral body, and finally the etheric and physical body. These vehicles and concentrations of soul consciousness we refer to as the incarnated soul, and the accumulation of physical, emotional, and mental energy make up the personality. Notice the image on the right. Consciousness has attracted matter of that particular plane it is residing on. Here it is shown pulled apart, but in reality, all matter, planes, and consciousness exist in the same space. Like gas intermingles with water and water with sand. The task ahead, soul identification. I am the soul.
Right, that was Jackie talking. And I'd like to show you the pictures of the various vehicles quickly. We all know the physical body. There's nothing new for me to add to. Now, I'm also showing here as the etheric double, which is part of the physical body. I've noticed that I show the approximate location of the 7 major chakras in the fashion Leadbeater saw them. And these red lines we call nadis. And they are energy channels that overlie the physical nervous system. And it is those that through acupuncture are manipulated to open or divert energies depending on the patient's symptoms. The size and the shape is roughly like the physical body, and it exudes, as you can see, a light blue field when the person is healthy, and less so when the person is sick. And this is how a clairvoyant could pinpoint diseases in the body itself, because the calling vitality field is less pronounced. I also show the outline of the aura, and the reason we call this still part of the physical body is because, as you know, the physical plane is also divided into 7 subplanes, and the etheric matter exists on the first, second, third, and fourth subplane of the physical, where the others are, of course, gaseous and liquid and hard physical. Okay. Of course, the astral vehicle, which we will be talking about a lot more today, is also surrounded by its aura. And notice certain colors which indicate certain belief structures, but the average person and the vast majority on the planet are emotionally based. Virtually their life rotates around the emotional body. And what we have built already are some loose miasmas, I would say, mess of loosely held emotions that we cannot discard. So they still float around with us at the bottom of the aura. And then many with hang-ups, with very strong beliefs, I should call these concretized forms, that has actually built a cage for us that holds us prison and dictates to us 24 hours a day the emotional response that we automatically are influenced by to manage the daily affairs of life. This is the part that I am talking about, that we must eliminate, if not here, and there are tools for it, but most certainly in the astral, because otherwise you cannot go on into what the Christian call the heaven world, the mental plane. And we'll be talking about that more often. Let's see if this works. Yes. Above that, on a much higher level of vibration and fine, much finer matter, is the mental body. And it looks similar or quite closely to the physical body. But here again, the average person has built up a lot of rubbish, false concepts, but loosely held, but still it is continued to be built upon and carry on and carry around with. Now again, around the head area, you have again some concretized ideas, conceptions that you hang on, that really make up like your software program. It will very much influence your personality's response before even you, the I, the thinker, has a chance to think about an answer. So this is like a program running by itself, influencing you constantly. And in connection with the emotions that you have concretized, these two, again, make you automatically respond to the daily affairs of life. Something, again, on the mental level we have to get rid of. And again, you can do that now, starting now. And again, of course, remember, this is the average person. All right. And above that, much, much higher on the mental level, actually on the third subplane of the mental 7 major subplanes, is our soul. And it is within what we call a causal body, which was formed about 18.5 million years for the average person, when the first individual conscious life became. I hope each one of you understand the difference between consciousness and self-consciousness, so I don't want to get too far into that. But self-consciousness is when you as an individual recognize that you are apart from the group and think apart from your group. Consciousness, of course, has been described here during the daytime. Even the smallest particle, an atom and even finer parts up to this universe is conscious, because it can respond, it can change, it can absorb, it can grow or become more complex, because every elemental on the planes that we are seeing here is evolving, just as Davis and larger, or animals evolve.
Why are we here, and what is the purpose of our life? It is the evolution of consciousness and becoming self-conscious on all planes, to manifest the highest and most spiritual qualities as personality. This is how we, the soul, grow. To aid our fellow brothers and sisters and attune ourselves to the purpose of this incarnation. To become conscious of our part in this grand scheme of life and aid in the evolution of humanity and this planet. Death, birth, and karma are all part of the cycle of reincarnation and must be considered together. Death is the recall of all good experiences into the soul.
And here I will go further into the simple process of losing one body at the time while withdrawing the consciousness into the higher level, until finally we merge with the soul. And there are a lot of questions that should be asked about it, so please do ask about this particular process here, what the wisdom calls the death of the personality. And it bothered me very much, and for at least 2-3 years, I researched everything I could find on it, and meditate on it, and try to get comfortable with that. And please ask later on, especially about that process. So let's see what we really are in one picture, and I mean what we are in this solar system up to the 5th initiation. We are, of course, the personality with the etheric physical body, astral body, lower mental body, making up the personality, which is connected via energy streams we call antakarana, which do become or are existing at the moment the soul takes over or coordinates or develops the embryo. And there are two major strands. The life strand anchors itself in the sinus note of the heart that keeps the heart ticking. Remember, the sinus note is the part of the heart that generates that electrical pulse that makes the heart muscle beat. Then we have the other major antakarana stream that is our thread into the pineal gland, and the sutra. There, by the way, some minor energy flows. When I talk about the Sutratma and Antakarana, these are not really things that you can take a pair of scissors to and cut. These are energy streams, streams of force. And our job, of course, in what we're into is increase the size of the Antakarana to allow more energy to flow down into us, because these are the streams that keep the physical body alive. And the Sutratma is the life thread, which also anchors in the pineal gland and keeps you conscious, self-conscious. And then, of course, you have the soul with the, the attributes of will, love, wisdom, and active intelligence. And the Sutratma connects the soul and us, the personality, to the monad, which is the spark of divinity within us. So this makes us in the human kingdom, and for that matter beyond. I can say that we have separated, isolated ourselves consciously because of false teachings and also serving the purpose of survival and interacting with this complex civilization we created. But the purpose is, of course, to become one again. And then our next goal is to become fully monadic conscious, which a fifth initiate master is. And what the soul is to the personality, the monad is to the soul. And once you get here, like Douglas Baker, 15, 20 times, as many times as he wanted to, he would be able to merge his personality into the soul. And we call that soul experience. And that is really, for each one of us, the goal for this incarnation. There is nothing more important. This is how we can serve the world, because we are to channel this energy into physical existence. And this is via, of course, having soul experience. And I hope, I affirm, most or each one of you does the right things, the right training, the right purification process of your physical, astral, and mental being to reach that. Because once you have soul experiences, you're never the same. You're never the same. You never walk alone, ever. And you wonder and you blame yourself for having screwed around so long, so many lifetimes, and preventing that union. Yes. So again, remember, we are really spirit having a human experience. We must stop separating ourselves from our higher self. I urge you to watch my video, which is the last one, about a 2-hour video that I named I the personality, I the soul, I the monad. It's free, please. All the videos I have on the website are free. There are about 80 videos, 75 lecture videos by Douglas Baker, and I created 5. And this would be the last one I created 1 or 2 years ago. So hopefully the last technical thing I want to show you before we go into the easier to understand things. But I'm showing here the entire universe, its matter, its planes, and you could call it the entire consciousness, that great, wonderful being that manifested these planes into the physical. And even this great being is still not perfected. Why do we know? There's nothing perfect yet in this universe. We cannot even comprehend what perfection might mean, just like infinity. These are words that are pondered around without understanding, because this great being must also reincarnate. And when it does so, when this pure spirit, this pure life manifests a physical universe, a body with all these levels, we call it manvantara. That's a Sanskrit word for the expression of the universe manifesting from spirit into physical. And what I outlined here in white is really our human experience. And this is only part of this cosmic physical plane. As you notice, there are a total of 7 cosmic planes. And the solar system and virtually everything within it is using only this cosmic plane called the cosmic physical plane. Now, notice where I placed the soul, and we count subplanes from top down. So this would be the first, second, and third subplane of the mental plane we call the higher mental plane, whereas the lower mental plane, humans exist in and express themselves in. And so today I hope to handle at least the physical plane, the astral plane, and if there's time, then I can just barely get into the mental plane. If you want to know the entire process of finally ending up in the soul, it would take me much longer, but my video that I have on that subject, called The Process of Dying and Our Journey Beyond, is also available in ebook and color printed book and black and white book. Get that ebook. There you see the entire process of going all the way into the soul. So let us now get into a little history. Until the year 553 AD, the Christian church taught reincarnation. And only then, when they had a major conference where they actually then determined the parts that are today in the Bible. And they rewrote it to eliminate reincarnation. Not fully successful, because you still find some phrases, some names and so forth in the existing Bible that indicate reincarnation was taught. And the main reason for this was to create unity amongst the church leaders and what they were teaching, and draw that power onto themselves. Because remember, they were in the Middle Ages, financial and power, physical power, the leaders. And of course, they wanted to make themselves forgivers of sin, which they nicely cashed in on it. And of course, they made themselves the gatekeepers of heaven. You follow the church's law, you abide by their rules, you are a good person, and so forth, and you will go to heaven. No reincarnation. You'll be sitting next to the throne of God, or hover above your grave until so-and-so angel blows the trumpet. But after that, you will be in heaven for infinity, forever. What do you do there? And so they don't say. So they made themselves the gatekeepers of heaven. And because of that, physical death became feared, because reincarnation takes that fear away, knowing that there is no death really. So let's change all that. And again, it's only a state entrance, or an entrance into a fuller life. So prepare yourself for the coming journey. What would you do if your boss came to you and said, we want to start a new chapter in our company and open up another outpost of our business in such and such foreign country? Well, you immediately, and if you're responsible for it, you would immediately research finances and exchange rates and immunization required and labor laws and legal laws and so forth. Whether you shed your physical body tomorrow or in 60 years, you might not know very much about what will happen after that, where you're going. You're going to a place you might know little about. So that's really the purpose here today. And yes, you can prepare yourself, and I'll show you some ideas. Remember, we are still spirit having a human experience, and we must recover our home. Physical death, and many ways we might suffer from it. The tunnel experience, I will explain, and then the astral and emotional plane, and I hope I will be able to get into the mental plane. I have a little slide, one slide that visually shows you what I think about the astral plane and its components. And of course, I tried then to summarize the chapter. Some of the ways we will pass over is, of course, mature adults dying of a disease. When there is a point where recovery from a disease is impossible, and the death is imminent or becomes imminent, it is very likely that it is the will of the soul recalling its personality. And the process I will describe a little more in detail. And of course, sudden accidental death, motorcycle accident, heart attack, etc., which can happen to any of us. And when you noticed the astral, not the astral, the astral and etheric separate immediately upon physical death. Not only when the heart stops, but because the body is very likely injured to the point where a slow process cannot occur, a slow process of separation. And what happens to almost all people, the vast majority of the people on the planet, is that when they lose their physical brain, they actually lose most of their critical faculties. It seems that that belongs to the physical brain, the constant challenging, the constant asking, is this true or not? So that is lost. And that's why most of the people who die, especially in accidents and sudden death, do not know that they actually lost their physical body, because the astral body looks to them identical to the physical body. And the critical faculties are diminished substantially, and hence there's no shock, no surprise. They don't ask themselves, when did I have my last meal? When did I go to the bathroom the last time? You see? And if you go in there clearly knowing you're still in the physical body, because you are like a god in the astral while you still have your physical body, because you can be so powerful and so creative because you still have your human body. If you would ask somebody these questions, they wouldn't know. You might confuse them if you try to prove to them that they actually are in their astral vehicle. And so depending on the level of consciousness, you have to be careful what to ask them, or not trying to alert them to the fact that they haven't been to the bathroom since they can, they don't know, or eaten. But missing limbs are restored, no pain. The bodies, the astral bodies, look most of the time substantially younger. So if somebody died of old age, and if they're happy about themselves and peaceful, their body might look like 20 years old. So fantastic. Let's see. Soldiers dying in battle. Because of conditioning in the Army, Air Force, and so forth, and because they're fighting a hated enemy, they tend to be, for a while, might be years, trapped in a state that they and all dead soldiers created that looks like a war scene, and they will continue fighting their enemy again and again and again until even that energy wears out, and they finally then can rise to the astral subplane that they should be on, that they're magnetically drawn to, based on their purity of their physical body, astral and astral body, and for that matter, mental body. But it's not a nice scene to observe, believe me. and suicides and consequences. One reason why I wrote this little book was that there are just too many suicides occurring, not just in children and teenagers and young adults, which, by the way, amounts to it being the second most reason for death in this age group. And so if somebody takes their lives, let's say an adult or child, whatever they try to escape from will be amplified, magnified, and played over and over again in the astral, because they end up in a little lower area of the astral than what their magnetic makeup of physical and astral vehicle would allow. And further, because the astral plane is the plane of emotion, of illusion, and so forth, everything is amplified. So what they try to escape from follows them, and they have to relive it again and again and again until that also wears out by attrition. That then they finally can take their place in the astral plane again, based on their makeup, the elemental contents of and quality of the body. Yeah. Earthbound good and bad people. This is a group of people who, if they're good, for instance, like here I'm showing a picture of a mother worrying about the children left behind, a businessman leaving, getting a heart attack or dying of a disease, praying for his business that he left behind not to fail. It could be a bad person having committed something that they regret, and they would like to stay close to the physical to make up for it, to hopefully resolve the situation. Now, these people hover near the things they left behind, like in this case, the mother with the children still in the physical. And again, these things slowly change. Children grow up, businesses either close or become successful. And so these energies wear out, again, by attrition, by radiating out and hopefully not adding anything negative. And then they will also rise again to the level they're supposed to be in. There's one group, Douglas Baker told us that he watched in the astral quite a few times the situation by which a drunkard, still in the physical body, would lie down and try to sleep, but while the liver was processing the alcohol, the liver the physical liver cannot completely separate from the astral liver, because in the astral vehicle we have all the organs and so forth. And so this lack of separation at that critical point where the liver in the physical body is trying to process the alcohol, fumes travel from the physical, alcoholic fumes travel into the astral. And there are these earthbound alcoholics who have lost their physical body, who are so dreadfully seeking satisfaction from what they used to get satisfaction from, that they actually, like vampires, suck these fumes. And in order to perpetuate that situation, the alcoholics or the drug addicts, they instill ideas and try to influence people still in incarnation to drink more, not to recover. And many alcoholics in the physical keep on falling off the wagon because they're being influenced by those earthbound alcoholics in the astral, in the lowest, one of the lowest astral planes. Again, Douglas Baker describes it as a horrendous scene. So let me describe, and in my book and in the ebook, I describe what the process of dying and what they experience for different groups of people, age groups and so forth, babies and disciples and all this. But here I don't have the time, so I'm just going to go into one, which is an adult dying of a disease. And we assume that it is close to the actual process of dying. And when there is no chance of recovery, then it is very likely that the soul has decided to recall its personality. The soul has a personality, believe me, it's a very distinct one. And we have formed the personality, but it is really based on the energies that the soul sent down through the different planes all the way into the physical. So that's how we separated ourselves from the soul. And so the process is that the soul then sounds forth a word on a much higher plane, like for instance, the etheric plane of recall. And the body, the physical body, responds immediately. Physiological changes then take place at the seat of the disease, then in the bloodstream by releasing from the endocrine system a substance that then speeds up the process. That substance, which has not been discovered yet by physical medicine here, also instills peace and calmness, and it then allows the separation of the etheric nadis that I pointed out before, which overlie the physical nervous system, to separate, to become disattached. And of course, the nadis are the one that overlie the nervous system. Then the etheric body finally detaches itself from the physical body, and it slightly separates. It doesn't go away, it slightly separates. Then the soul withdraws that life strand. The life strand is that energy flow, the force anchored in the sinus node of the heart, and that makes the heart stop. The mind and consciousness is still fully active. Even then, should you try to talk to that person, they would hear, they could think of an answer, but of course the heart stopped, so they cannot express themselves anymore. This is why I recommended the safest way is when in a death room, you don't play music, you don't sing, no hymns, no multicolored lights, no recordings, anything like that. If you burn incense, I think it's only sandalwood you should burn. Because it helps the soul to process the method of dying in a more idyllic or ideal way. The etheric body, then, remember those four levels of still matter that we cannot measure and see. They finally then come together and to center in front or within three of possible exits from the body. The vast majority of people, emotionally based people, the etheric vehicle will leave through the crown chakra, the solar plexus chakra, which is about 2 inches above the umbilicus. And the second way, people who are more spiritually centered and center themselves in the heart, they have the opportunity to leave through the heart chakra. The third point of exit is for balanced, intellectual people, disciples, initiates, those, in other words, who have integrated the personalities and who have balanced their emotional, mental life. They exit through the bregma, which is the point where the skull's joints come together and build like a Y or T. They are the only ones, normally, there are exceptions to everything, normally they are the ones who leave fully conscious. These people here, they most of the time fall asleep and sort of like drift up into the place through the tunnel. I don't know why somebody gave it the name tunnel. Doesn't look like a tunnel, to me at least. And then wake up in the place where they belong, where they are magnetically attracted to, let's call them neighborhoods that they would feel most pleasant in. But life is not finished yet. There's something that opposes the consciousness leaving the physical body, and that we call elemental of appearance. Some people call it something else, but the ancient wisdom calls it elemental of appearance, which is the force that is maintained within the physical body, not just the dull thing that we invested in as consciousness, but the elementals, which are individual life forms that are on the involutionary path. We are on the evolutionary path. They are on the downward arc of evolution into the mineral kingdom, the physical mineral kingdom. And from there, then their evolution will start, just as ours started. Whereas the soul has the full intent to bring our consciousness and matter sooner or later towards spirit. That is the soul's purpose. That is the most important soul purpose. It is the purpose that when the monad created the soul, instilled in the soul to gather this experience on these different levels, including the physical level, to bring back as a learning process, as wisdom, as active intelligence, as love wisdom. And so there are opposing energies, and the elemental trying to preserve the physical body will sort of like resist the soul's pull upward. And it does so by instilling fear or trying to instill fear. And you are still conscious, the dying person. Do not respond to that fear, but let go. And that's what this enzyme or protein does in the blood from the endocrine system. It lasts only a short while. It just prolongs the dying process by a few minutes, hopefully not at all, depending on what level of consciousness you are on. I'm talking about the average emotional, average person here of humanity. But there's very little said about that particular item that I just mentioned. The heart has stopped. Consciousness, as I mentioned, is still very active. Now the human ego, you, the I, the thinker, the true thinker, which is not your astral body or even your mental body. It is the true I am, finally exits. And in the same process, and I speak of personal experiences because I've been through that fully conscious, all scenes from today until birth is played by you. It's a fantastic video, so brilliantly sharp, so clear. All the emotions are replayed, but things that you have long forgotten appear again to you. And time is suspended, meaning physical time is virtually extended to the point where it seems like a much longer time for these scenes to play backwards. But and the purpose is that your memory is copied in much greater detail than you can ever remember. And it's done so real and colorful to preserve the best parts of you, your experience for the mental life to come. That's the purpose. By the time these scenes run backwards to birth, where the soul actually took full control over the infant, the consciousness threat then is withdrawn. And then there's no way back into physical life for that incarnation. So that is really the point, finally, that you leave your physical body behind. You retain all memories, all your experiences, all the association with people, everything is still fully maintained, because the law is this, and it's a wonderful law, that because we have these different vehicles of consciousness, and because virtually everybody here in humanity is only self-conscious in the physical brain, which is your outermost point of your physical existence. If you lose that part, if you lose your physical brain, the natural law makes you fully conscious in your outermost vehicle, which is, of course, the astral vehicle. So you have no choice. Now, there are exceptions to everything. There are many, not many, but a few, like initiates, who will go directly into the mental, or maybe hover momentarily in the astral and then go immediately to the mental, because that's their state of consciousness. So remember, the process now of dying is completed. The ones who left through these two points of contact normally fall asleep. And remember, now I start talking about the tunnel experience. And it's mainly because people who had near-death experiences describe it as dark environment with a light shining at the end of what looks like a tunnel. I would compare that much more with an elevator ride, without the doors on the elevator. And as you go from the lowest, basically lowest physical, through the lower levels of the astral, you see scenes go by, because that elevator door is open. The scenes go by, some horrendous, terrible, because of the lower realms you go through as you rise. And as you rise more and more, the scenes become more and more attractive and interesting. Do not get off. Do not linger. Even so, they might look attractive. Let your magnetic makeup, your quality of your astral vehicle and your mental vehicle dictate where you should be. And it will be always the most fitting place within the astral realm. Later on, when I show you a picture of it, the way I visualize the astral, you will understand. So they always describe, and yes, and I can confirm that there's a being of light, a consciousness, a warm, beautiful mastery consciousness awaiting you, welcoming you. And what it is almost in every case, it is your soul. Because regardless of the evolution or the development of the personality, whether it is a jungle pygmy or the biggest genius here on the planet, the soul of those individuals will recognize this as a major point in its life and in the personality's life, in the consciousness's life, I should say. And it welcomes you in cases where there were just near-death experiences. Obviously, those people came back into consciousness because their consciousness thread had not been severed yet. There is this welcoming light, or family members that have passed on previously that would then say, no, go back. And so, but there's so much documentation on near-death experiences. I most certainly don't need to go into that. So again, do not stop, do not linger. Leave it up to your makeup to take you to the right place. Let me just explain a little about the astral plane. I wish I had much more time. In fact, let me see where I am. The astral plane, also called the astral light, the plane of glamour, because it's an emotional plane, illusion, and I always emphasize the plane of emotions. Emotions are amplified, and the purpose you end up there. Oh, Greeks call it Hades, underworld. Christianity calls it purgatory, and the average stay is about 20 years for the average person. But what is so unique, because most people are still getting buried in the ground, or the bodies, the physical bodies. It takes about 20 years to dissolve the body to the point where it's earth. And there's a link that connects the person in the astral now with that corpse. And in fact, many of them in their astral, their etheric vehicle, because of some remaining consciousness, listen to the church by hovering near their grave, waiting for what angel to blow the trumpet, right? You remember that part that Christiane is teaching? And so, but there are ways to either eliminate it via, of course, cremation, which destroys the physical body and the etheric body immediately. And in opposite to that, the Egyptians mummified their kings, their gods, their pharaohs, and by doing so, prolonged the pharaoh's life in the astral plane almost indefinitely, hundreds of years, because the corpse is still there, and the link, as faint as it is still existing between the physical and etheric and the astral consciousness. So again, something positive for cremation. Now, the astral plane is made up of astral matter, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times finer than the physical atoms. It was introduced into that plane, or that part of vibrational universe, by the solar logos, in order to create an in-between, a purgatory, to actually allow emotional cleansing. But it was initially just matter, fine matter, elementals, their individual lives, as tiny as they are. But we, the humanity, ever since the Atlantean days, when we formed the solar plexus chakra and became emotional beings, we have been shaping that environment, because through your hopes and dreams and wishes and anger and hate and everything else, this elemental life, astral elemental life, follows your thoughts, follows your emotional focus. And so you will see 50,000 Elvis Presleys as created by us. And there are monsters and animals and everything else, and they're all, layered as more spiritual. These thoughts were as a finer, better environment was shaped. Douglas Baker one time told me that he one time in the astral realized that he called it why can't I think of the name? Who?
George Delaware.
No, a woman, a black woman, wonderful person, who had the show for 14 years on TV. Oprah, of course. I don't. Oprah. And he called it the Oprah effect, because every week up to like 44 million people watch this highly emotional show. It's all positive, of course, but this combined emotional energy sometimes made whole section of the astral disappear or reform into something else. And Douglas, I called him Douglas, everybody else called him DB, Douglas Baker, saw this and realized where this influence came from, because that it is such a fluent environment. And if you want to visually experience that, watch the movie What Dreams May Come. Yeah, that shows you the astral planes, the vivid colors, the shape shifting, and so forth. There are some mistakes in it, like suicide is not properly displayed. The way I just displayed or explained suicide is closer to the truth. There's always a way back. But also, the second problem with that movie is that it is not the personality that determines when to reincarnate. That's the other part. So, yes, you have a question? Oh, I better get going. I'm sorry, I get carried away. So, astral plane looks totally real to you when you get there. I talked about this, astral mental body. The body looks exactly like yours, but frequently younger. Critical faculties are reduced. The purpose here, again, is to live out your lowest vibrational emotions and shed that, what I showed you as miasma, as cages, as rubbish that float around and are part of your programming. That is the purpose. And it's done via attrition primarily. Also, the soul will constantly pull you closer and closer towards the mental plane. And then let me first explain the astral plane.
The astral plane visualized. Here is an image I hope will aid you in understanding the astral world. Imagine this region of astral matter extending from the earth into every direction, each containing these areas or neighborhoods. I show these here made up of higher, lower, and very low vibrational quality. In reality, the astral world is in constant motion due to the rotation of the planet and many other factors. Notice where I place the surface of the planet. And here is where we might find the so-called earthbound persons. Here the bad persons and suicides. And here perhaps the very evil humans.
And we don't have the time, of course, to talk about what the Christian call hell. The ancient wisdom calls Avicii or and eighth sphere, where the real evil people go. There's nobody who there to judge you. There's a place for every type of consciousness, and the lowest ones go to a special place. And I observed at times that environment, because we are from time to time asked to go there to shed some light, to hopefully elevate some consciousness's vibrations to because there is a way to get back into the normal higher levels of the astral. Redemption is possible, not for all. Anyway, this is unfortunately not the time to be able to talk about it. But in summary, death and reincarnation is important, because 80 years in the body, one life, like Christianity teaches, is just not enough to get up there, not to refine your vehicles, make them more spiritual, to become soul conscious. The moment of death is absolutely painless. And for that moment of death, clarity prevails, regardless whether it's an alcoholic in the last phase of tremors or not. Elemental lives benefit from having been part of our physical, astral, and mental vehicles, because they learned vibrationally to evolve, or in this case, involve faster before they enter again into the upward curve. Again, mummification will prolong it. Organ donation, I really leave up to you, because there are pros and cons. The pros are, of course, that you are saving somebody's life, hopefully. The cons are that there is a link that will persist between your consciousness, especially in the astral, and as fine it can be, to that surviving organ. And karmically, you two, the recipient and the donor, tend to share some of that karma that occurs in either location. So again, cremation is, that would prevent it. So, but also cremation is to kill a disease permanently that killed that patient. Many viruses, especially the bad ones, they, in their dormant state, crystallize, and they can survive hundreds or thousands of years in the earth. And the moment they get dug up through earthquakes or such, they then can enter your nostrils, a moist, warm environment, and turn back into fully activated viruses. So, and of course, it's cleaning that when you have your physical body cremated. Again, this is the most important point I hope you take away from this, is that what you do here in your physical incarnation is your very best chance to then have a much more pleasant and easier sojourn through the astral, mental, and finally merging with the soul. I thank you very much.